The Bible opens with these famous words, "In the beginning, God." And then just 26 verses later, it says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them." In this opening chapter of the Bible here, God is making distinctions that we often overlook. It's the idea that God is separate from us. And then even among us, there's a separation that then takes place there. So we basically have these three different categories. What I would say now are these three different lanes that we need to look at. That there is the God lane, there is the me lane, and then there is the others lane. And Genesis chapter 1 tries to draw those distinctions, because until we draw those distinctions, we won't know how to properly operate. So what's God's? He is ultimately in control of all things. He is sovereignly in charge. He has a plan that you and I cannot thwart. And as humanity, it is our job to submit to his definitions of how this life is supposed to operate, to submit to his own call over our lives, to recognize that he is God and we are not. We are called to accept what's God's. But then what's mine? There are things that God in his divine sovereignty has handed over to me to take full responsibility of. I'm in charge of my decisions, my character, my attitude, my actions. And to the extent that I own those things, I can follow him. But when I live in denial of what I own, I will suffer the consequences. But then there's theirs. Other people are equally dependable upon God, responsible to God, that it's not my job to take ownership of you. Instead, I have to stand back and relate to you in a proper way. What's mine? What's theirs? What's God's? To the extent that you and I control what's mine, influence what's theirs, and accept what's God's, life will move and it will flow and we will grow, and there'll be less conflict and less tension in the midst of relationships. But so often what happens is I live in denial of what's mine and I fixate on what's theirs. I try to control those things that I can't control, which raises within me a sense of anxiety, which creates a tension. Have you ever been disrespected? When somebody doesn't respect what is rightfully mine, there's a tension that is then created in that relationship. So I live in denial of what's mine. I fixate on what's theirs. And so often I want to argue about what's God's. And when that arguing begins to happen, my life comes to an absolute standstill. So many of the problems that we face in life today is the fact that we have not drawn the clear distinctions of what's mine, what's theirs, and what's God's. And the result of that is that worry grows within us, tension grows between us, and we just stop. And yet the moment you and I open our eyes to how God has created us, when we define the lanes of our lives and we control what is mine, we influence what is theirs, and we accept what is God's. Whenever we learn to stay in our lane, life moves, there's peace, there's joy, there's influence, there's life. God has called you today differently than he has called other people. He has separated you from himself. Understand what you control, what you need to accept, and what you can influence, and life will be different.